Hello there, everyone. We're just admitting a few more people into the room. And while we're doing that, we are going to do a movement experience today. And if I had just one movement to do, this one would be it. So I'm going to ask you to make sure you have available for yourself a mat that you can lie on, anything that you need underneath your head to feel support. And then also, if you have a rather large pillow or a roller would work, I'm going to use that under one of your knees or to the side of your knee. All right. So I'll give you a moment to do that. And,
Good.
and as you can start to see on the screen, this is kind of our agenda of what we will be covering today. And of course, we can't talk about postural reflexes without talking about gait and your ability in walking or how you walk. So even though I'm quite aware that this class is not about your gait or walking, there is an intimate connection that we need to take a look at, and it'll help make you understand postural reflexes even much more clearer. Here we go. When ideas go unexamined and unchallenged for a long time, they become mythological and very, very powerful. They create conformity, they intimidate. This is a quote by El Doctoro in conversation with Bill Moyers back in 1989. This quote reflects how insidious and unconscious we can be in our thinking. This quote is about calcification. It's about creating conformity. So at the very least, we don't rebel. And at the most, certain or specific ideas keep us moving or hurting us along in a very particular way of thinking. So how does this quote apply to postural reflexes and balance? Well, for the most part, we take our ability to walk and maintain our balance for granted until either we can't do it anymore or it becomes limited to where we go and what we do because we need some type of assisted device or maybe because our movement is painful. You and I can agree that locomotion is paramount in our life, right? Just think of the basics. Like when you get this signal today that you have to go to the bathroom, you've got to get up out of that chair and go, right? Your ability to get what you want, go where you want, and move when you want is such a demonstration of freedom. Freedom that left unexamined and unchallenged over time degrades. And before you know it, our gait and balance have changed so much that it requires great effort or assistance and can be quite painful. Now, the relationship between gait, reflexes, and balance has not been fully examined and challenged. Now, I know that may seem like a contradictory statement, especially when you do a Google search, right? And you can see really many good studies that collectively answer this question. You want better walking, you want better balance, then you need to do this. So let me share my screen. This is what we need to do. This is the national protocol for balance. You have to walk about 150 minutes a week. Do some type of daily balance training, strength training, at least twice a week, and do something that involves your arm swing, something that involves changing how long of a step you take, how wide a step is, your rhythm of your step, and of course, your speed. It's an excellent and well-founded protocol. And yet I wonder how many of you, right, here today, or maybe someone you know who started implementing these suggestions, had good intentions, but ended up hurting themselves or getting into more pain, movement restriction, maybe some type of limited walking, especially if you try to navigate different or challenging surfaces. Eventually, you become fearful of falling. There is a connection between walking better, better balance, and better reflexes. And it's right here. That connection is at the mid stance of gait. That means your ability to stand on one leg, how you get there, sustain it, and transition through that mid stance of gait. And by the way, just to let you know, that's on an average 3 million times a year. It will determine not only the quality of your alignment and movement, but it also signals to the system whether or not your walking leads to more osteoarthritis of the spine or the hip, a knee bursitis, or hip muscle strength or inhibition. Now, I know most of you know me from the Gait from Wild Human Potential class. And over the last 15 years, believe it or not, we've been challenging this idea of better walking, better balance. It's more than just walking faster. It's more than just covering a certain distance or strength training. We explored gaits within gaits as a template for transformational thinking. And without knowing it, it actually laid the foundation for this upcoming class on restoring postural reflexes and balance. Our intention was to kind of pull back the curtain and say, hey, everyone, have a look here. There's something you need to see because the quality of your walk and movement is either going to help your health or it's going to put you on a slow, insidious track for a disease process and possibly a fall. Now, we're not inventing or reinventing, I should say, how to walk, or we're not trying to elicit new reflexes or balance strategies. That, folks, is a template that's already in the brain and in the spinal cord. And for the most part, it's unconscious and experienced as automatic stepping. Your drive to move around despite gravity is hardwired. And the nervous system uses certain pathways and it can sense which motor or muscle pathways are most available to get you where you want to go. So we think before we go out and undertake this national protocol to walk differently or to walk more or to strength train, it might be a good idea to examine and restore some basic foundational and fundamental principles of movement. Using a somatic education approach, we can examine balance in any function like gait, how you walk, with the intention to demonstrate that there's a relationship between the parts of ourself, the joints that make up ourself, and the whole of ourself. And we can use those parts to whole concept to restore or improve, speed up our postural reflexes, which in turn will improve our balance. So up to now, we have been unaware of how we can influence healing in our bodies. Now, when we understand the depth of connection between these parts to whole, like for example, you see all these individual parts on the screen here. When you improve how one part of the whole of who you are improves, you will improve the whole system. You will improve the functioning of the whole system. So just like in Gait and in our postural reflex class, we're going to do more than just explore these individual components, right? It's not just about changing alignment of bones, like how bones are stacked up on one another. It definitely gives a movement of sense of ease and lightness if you've experienced this. And definitely it's more than just restoring mobility across each of these areas. And when we look at the parts to whole concept, it also has the capacity to restore this felt sense of stability when just a few minutes ago it wasn't there. So the take home message is when we somatically start to explore this parts to whole concept, we begin to heal the dysfunctional aspects or the dysfunctional relationships within our body. I'm going to say that again because I think it's real important. We have the capacity to heal dysfunctional relationships that has happened over time. So we're not just increasing range of motion and strength. We are healing something that's quite unconscious within ourselves. It's very important because these dysfunctional relationships transmit dysfunctional communication across the nervous system. So, what we're attempting to do in this postural class is to start to change the communication, to start to change the conversation. We want to give the nervous system access to quality patterned movements, not just range of motion in a joint, not just isolated muscle strength training. Those things are good. They are very good, but there's more here than that. We want to heal dysfunctional relationships. Now, dysfunctional patterns, these relationships, they weren't always dysfunctional, not in the beginning. They're not inherently bad or wrong, but it's just something that becomes. And over time, it is inefficient and limiting. And in the class, we'll talk more about why and how postural reflexes and balance erode over time. But for now, I want you to know that dysfunctional relationships or patterns of movement do an excellent job at keeping us safe. But it's a false sense of safety. It's something that's comfortable, predictable, familiar, and known, but it's a false sense of safety. It takes a lot of energy to keep dysfunctional relationships as is over time. But most importantly, hear me say that it robs the nervous system in its ability to access specific motor or muscle pathways that can keep us from falling. So, I've been alluding to this connection between postural reflexes and gait. They also have this in common. So the nervous system is constantly resolving this issue with its relationship with gravity. And it is always wanting to bring your center of mass, which is located in your pelvis, as demonstrated by these little white star suns, over your base of support. Now, your base of support is your contact with the ground. It could be one hand, two hands, one foot. As you see in Baby Wren, all of that area that's touching the floor is her base of support. So, postural reflexes control your body's position in space. And it does this for two reasons. Its first purpose is to give you, obviously, stability, right? But its purpose is to provide a sense of orientation. But know this postural control is a prerequisite for all your voluntary skills you make every day, whether it's reaching, carrying, rolling, turning, walking. Every task has an orientation and a stability component to it. Now, normally, the nervous system has the ability to generate and apply just the right amount of muscle activation, strength, timing, coordination, excuse me, and everything it's needed to keep you upright, keep you moving against gravity. The difference between postural reflexes and gait is the speed at which the nervous system restores the body to its upright position. So, when there has been an unexpected and quick displacement of either your center of mass, which is located in the pelvis, or your base of support, the ground underneath of you is changing, you would know it as a sharp intake of breath. Your eyes might get really wide open. You might even think or say, I'm falling. Now, the nervous system attempts to execute very predictable, and specific postural reflexes. And they're called riding reflexes. Okay? These riding or equilibrium reactions, here we go. These riding and equilibrium reactions are subsets of postural reflexes. However, as we get older, here's what happens. Most falls in the elderly are thought to be due to inadequate reflex response. Now you think, well, what does elderly mean? What's the definition of elderly? How many of you in your 50s have already had a fall that changed the course of your life, right? You got up again, you were able to get through broken bones, you were able to move, but it actually exponentially starts to then begin your number one reason of why people have falls, because they've already had falls. And the change in this inadequate reflex, what that means is that your reflex can be slowed down. So you're slow to respond. The nervous system, it can sense a disturbance in the relationship between your center of mass and base of support, but it is slow in righting you back up. 50% of all falls as we get older, they're due to a sudden movement of your base of support. Have you ever slipped on the ice before? Have you ever stepped wrong on a sidewalk crack? Or how about this couple here, just stepping on a rock, a larger rock just the right way? Or have you ever missed the last step when going down the stairs? The following 35% of falls are due to something called external perturbations. Now, that's a fancy term in the balance field that says outside disturbance of your center of mass. That means that something in the environment comes along rather suddenly and unexpectedly, throws you off balance. Your pelvis is moved outside your base of support. This happened to me when I was in a crowd and we were all trying to move in a certain direction and someone bumps into you. Or it may have happened to you if you misjudged the wall as you're rounding a corner in your home. Or maybe a dog unexpectedly jumps up on you. The last 10% of spontaneous falls are related to more of a physiological episode. And we call those like a seizure or low blood pressure or even low blood sugar, or it could also be a TIA or a stroke. So what you want to hear is that your postural reflexes, they're out of your volitional control. We'll talk about the reflexes in class, but this is the one that we're really targeting, the postural reflexes. They are automatic. You don't have control of them. They're reactive. They make just the correct number of adjustments in your muscle skeletal system so that you can regain balance or equilibrium. You cannot modify these predictable motor patterns. I'll say that again. You cannot modify these predictable patterns through your conscious effort. They are controlled by specific areas of the brain and of the spinal cord. Okay? But you can influence them. You can impact the speed at which they move. So, for the most part, these postural reflexes are, I'm going to have, if you could mute yourself, that would be great. For the most part, these postural reflexes are super fast, but they can be suppressed or inhibited. And like I said, slowed down over the years. So we want to abort that. How can we stop? How can we change that? And here's where gaits within Gait have been transformative in our thinking. So if we improve the individual parts of a system, all right, we know that you improve the whole of the system, meaning that you improve function, you improve balance, because you're improving the nervous system's access to motor pathways. The nervous system's access to specific firing patterns of muscles very quickly, very realigning this center of mass and base of support. So remember when I said the nervous system is constantly monitoring your center of mass and base of support? Well, it does this through these three sensory systems. These are like listening devices within your system. This three systems, vision, vestibular, and somatosensory, are our top three. Now, I'm going to pause here for just a moment, and I want to see if I can make sure that everyone is muted. So could you look down at your computer and make sure that your microphone is off? It'll give us all a very pleasurable experience when we go to replay. All right. So I am talking to, all right. I'm going to stop the share for just a moment and see if I can change. There we go. All right. Thank you for your patience there. So let's go back to your listening devices, okay? So you have three possibilities in order to influence your postural reflexes and balance. It either is going to happen through your vision, your vestibular system, or something here, which this class does a lot with, and it's called the somatosensory system. These are specialized receptors, or they're nerve endings that are in each one of these areas. And what they do is they provide information that allows us to understand and orientate our head in space in relationship to gravity. They orientate our eyes in relationship to surrounding objects. But the somatosensory, this is what links gait and the other parts to whole concept that we've talked about earlier. This is your system. It's your first line of defense, okay? When it comes to eliciting better reflexes, speed of reflexes, I should say, and righting yourself for balance. Most of you may know this system as the proprioceptive system. It also monitors touch and pressure, but proprioceptive is one of its number one functions. So, like I said, these special receptors, they're also known as nerve endings, and they're everywhere in every joint, the capsule that surrounds them. They're through all ligaments. And remember, ligaments bind bone to bone, or ligaments hold our organs in place, okay? And they're in all tendons. Now, tendons connect muscle to bone. Now, there's even proprioceptive sensors within the muscles that hold your eyeball in place. All right. There are even receptors within all of our muscle fibers, our fascia, and our skin. They're monitoring tension and the speed of change. It is this system that allows your nervous system to sense our individual parts of our body and the relationship between the parts. It's sending information to the brain. It's sending information that allows us cumulatively to have the fastest and most sensitive to balance disturbance response. This is our number one system. It provides the most information regarding your base of support. And it is in this system that we have the tremendous influence. Now, of course, when we talk about optimal postural stability, or can I say orientation, or the activation of these reflexes, optimal. Optimal will require at least the input of two of these sensory systems. It requires a combination because no one system accurately can measure the body's position of your center of mass and your base of support. So, normally, it is your vision and your somatosensory that work together as a team. These give us the most external information about what's happening in your environment. This is all going on unconsciously, of course. You're just attending to the sight that you see or the walk and talk that you're doing with someone next to you. It's all unconscious. But the vestibular system over here, this area right here in the purple, this purple area will step in and complete the sensory information when your vision and the somatosensory systems do not agree. All right. And I don't know if you've had that experience of sitting in your car, you're getting ready to back out and you haven't taken your foot off the brake, but all of a sudden there's a car right beside you starting to back up and you think you're moving, right? Have you had that before? So when you have two of these three working for you, you have a better chance of restoring yourself to upright. All right. This class is about the somatosensory. It's not about what we will influence the vestibular, but the vestibular system itself is a league of its own. It's a class of its own, and we will not be actually uh, doing a lot with that system directly. All right. Now, I want to give you a sample movement here of a somatic experience that involves this somatosensory system. And this experience is designed to improve your mobility of a very local area, your ankle, and connecting that local to regional connection through the hip and the trunk. And so, what we're going to do is that as we improve a local and regional functioning, then the purpose of the postural reflex can actually be elicited automatically. My hope is that it will restore very quickly that postural reflex when you need it. We can't train our postural reflexes, but we can influence all the pathways that the nervous system is going to take in order to make your upright experience more possible. So, what I'd like you to do now is to, in a moment, I'm going to ask you to come to standing. And I want to see how fast, or maybe you observe yourself, how fast do you get up out of your chair? How fast do you get up out of your chair? And how fast can you walk across the room? Start with that. Just noticing the speed. Are there several things that you have to do to adjust in order to move forward? And as you're walking forward and back. You walk out maybe 10 feet, whatever is available in your room, and then you turn around and you walk. Mhm. Start to pay attention to your ankle joints. Mhm. Your ankle joints, the freedom of your ankle joints. What's interesting is that we typically don't really track the motion in our ankle joints unless it's missing or unless we have a contrasting experience of it. Mhm. All right. Now, come back, stand in front of your camera, I want you to assess your balance. And this is one of the things that we'll be doing in the class. I want to start to give you a hands on experience of how you can assess your balance every day. All right. And a lot of people, the first thing that they want to do is they want to try and see how easy is it for them to stand on one leg. Well, you can go ahead and do that, but that's not the balance assessment I'm going to do, as I see some of you do that. It's a good one, but it's maybe not one that might be as practical for you as you think. Now, if you look down at your feet, all right, we're going to do a test that actually tests your proprioception. We do this in the clinic. It's going to test where you sense you are in space. So your feet first are hip width apart. Mhm. I want you to look forward. Your eyes are open. And believe it or not, this is the first part of the test. This is called a Romberg test. Now, what I'm doing is we're sensing whether or not you would be a person who would benefit from this class. If just standing there and you start to fall and try to catch yourself, you would not be a candidate for this class. Just wanted to let you know. Okay. Now, if I have you close your eyes. Now, there is sway. The torso moving is expected, but it's limited in its sway. If you're doing fine with that, you are still a candidate for this class. All right, open your eyes. Good. Now, I want you to put your feet together. So you narrow your base of support, put them together, and look forward. Your eyes are open. Mhm. And of course, there is that expected sway. You can start to feel that the ankles, your torso is moving over your feet. Mhm. And now begin to close your eyes. Close your eyes. And the sway will get a little bit more, it increases. That's normal, okay? But if you feel like you're going to fall over, or if you start getting this dizzy sensation, then this class may not be for you. Now, keeping your eyes closed, can you bring your finger to touch the bridge of your nose? Any finger. Just see where you land. Just interesting with your eyes closed. Hmm. Good. Now, let that go and let your legs come apart. Good. So, one of the hallmarks that I'm looking for and that I want you to look for when you start to undertake any kind of balance training is if you start to have a spinning sensation or you start to have this nauseated sensation, then this class will probably not be for you. And you probably need the class about vestibular retraining. Okay. So this is targeting vision and it's also going to target the somatosensory, those two listening devices. Good. All right. Now you're standing there and I want you to begin to allow the torso, listen first before you do it. Allow the torso to start to lean forward. How far forward can you lean before you start to automatically step forward? Mhm. Just notice the motion in your ankles. How long can your heels stay on the ground before you, oh, oh, take a step, oh, oh, take a step? All right, good. So the reason why we're going to do, and you could try it several times. In fact, you might even put one foot behind the other and allow your weight to be on one foot and then lean over one foot and then step forward and then try it on the other side. One of the first strategies that we have that tends to go as we get older or when we lose our ability to really have full access to the local and regional gaits within our body is at the ankle. And that stepping strategy is so important. And as it goes, we will also slow down our postural reflex. All right. So you got a sense of where we're starting from. Now, come to lie on the floor and lie on your mat in such a way that your head is fairly supported or level, is what I want to say, because we will be putting our hand behind our head. And if you have your roller or that large pillow, you might need that to put under one knee, and I'll direct you accordingly. So you're lying on your back, your legs are long, your hands are down by your side. Mhm. We'll start first with our breathing because this movement experience is going to use the timing of our breath as we apply a pleasurable exertion or effort today. Now, I want you to draw up your left foot in such a way that your left heel goes towards your sit bone, and then let your left knee hang out to the side. So, as you let the left knee hang out to the side, some of you may feel, well, that's a no brainer. My whole leg can go all the way down to the floor. All right. But what I'd like you to do, I'd like you to put something under the side of your knee so that it doesn't lie completely flat. And then, of course, there's going to be some of us here in the class that have lost range of motion at the hip, which is another postural reflex strategy that gives us uprightness, the speed of uprightness to return. So I want you to keep something underneath that knee and that the left foot is heading in that direction towards the sit bones. And the left foot is turned out on its side. Draw the right heel up and place your right heel and foot somewhere on your left heel and foot. Now, the origin of this somatic movement experience comes from one of my teachers, Ruthie Alon. This is about stepping on the foot. So, what I'd like you to do at first is I want you just to let your right foot push into your right heel, just your left heel, just below your ankle bone, pushing into your heel bone. And I want you to kind of play around of stepping in different places on that left foot, a little bit towards your arch, a little bit towards the big toe. Okay. Now, some of you have your whole foot flat. Could you actually bend the right ankle so that it's flexed? So only the back or the bottom of the right heel has that specific contact into and on the left foot. That's right. Several places. hmm Good. Now, let that go and let your right leg belong again. And if you need to adjust the pillow or the roller underneath that left thigh, certainly you can. Sometimes taking your socks off can be of real help because one of the problems as we get older is that we can lose sensation in our feet for many reasons, of course. All right, draw that right foot up to standing again, flex the right foot, and then once again, start to map out that side of the left foot. And every time that you press into the left foot with your right heel, I want you to exhale. So we're going slower now. So find the timing of letting your exhalation and the pressing of the foot, pressure going into the left foot. So we're starting to time that a little bit more. Can you get to that area right behind the inside heel bone where your Achilles tendon and that space between Achilles tendon of the left foot and the left inside ankle bone are? Can you even get that place there? Your receptors are in that tendon, right? Those somatosensory. And every time you displace the tendon and change its relationship, every time you step on those bones, maybe the bones that connect your long metatarsals into your arch, into that area. As you displace and feel pressure in there, you change ligaments. Ligaments are firing, nerve endings are going off, timing it with your breath. Good. Now let that go. Let that leg be long. Now, Ruthie Alon gives us another level of integration and connection. She doesn't talk necessarily about it being a local response like what we just did, is waking up those sensory receptors, those listening devices in the foot. But she also does something to connect the foot to the pelvis, to the hip, to the torso. Now, fix the same configuration, right foot standing, left knee out to the side. Stand your right foot on the left heel. Now, this time, as you begin to, you're going to go a lot slower. I want you to start to have this sensation that as you begin to depress your right foot into the left, send that depression as though that you were going to push your right foot away from yourself and see if the pelvis could start to lighten up a little bit, especially the right side of the pelvis. You would press your right foot into the left pelvis is staying on the ground. The right one starts to lift up, that buttock starts to lift up. And then as you release the pressing of the right foot into the left, the pelvis lowers to the floor. See if you can get a sense that as you map out different areas on that left foot, that the left side of the belly button, you can start to feel the navel. You can start to feel the lower end of the breastbone to start to roll or to orientate towards the left. So make that a little clearer. Maybe finding that place right underneath the inside ankle bone, not on the ankle bone, right? But underneath it, that calcaneus. And as you press down with your right foot, lift. That's right. Lift your right side of the buttock, your waist, and even into your ribs. Nice. And let that go. And let both of your legs be a little long now. hmm You see, most studies are done around doing different types of interventions. We forget that we need to go back and take a look at the foundational or fundamental principles that allow connection of a local joint to regional joints, from a ankle and foot to a hip and a pelvis and a torso. We go too quickly in trying the intervention without preparing the landscape. And that's what we're doing here today. We prepare the landscape, free as much as possible, so that the nervous system has the possibility to choose the most efficient, the most direct response, and quickly elicit you back upright. Now take that same position again, left knee hanging out to the side, supported by your roller, supported by your pillow. Stand the right foot on the left foot. Just stand it there. And this time I'd like you to put your left hand under the back of your head, and then the right hand underneath, not interlaced, but underneath your left hand. And a couple of times, what I'd like you to do is your head is going to rest in your hands. Now, some of you, let's try this first. Keeping your hands on the floor, can you begin to move the back of your head to the right? So the back of your head would go toward the direction of your left fingertips. So your head, not your hands, but your head is sliding within your hands. That's one thing, right? That's one version, but it's not what I'm after today. Today, I'm after is, can you let that head rest in the back of your hands and draw your attention, your focus to the tip of your right elbow, and begin to draw the right elbow along the floor, parallel to the floor, in the direction toward the bottom of your mat. So that means that the back of your right knuckles will start to slide along your mat as your elbow heads in the direction of your feet to the end of your mat. And you can get a sense that you are folding in your torso, right? Along your ribs, the side, the seams of your shirt, the armpit heading in the direction of the bottom of the mat. Good. All right. Now switch over your hand. Put the right hand near your head and the left hand supporting the right hand. And give it a go with your left elbow, focusing on the left elbow, going down towards the floor, in the direction of your mat. And you notice these two sides are very different depending upon who's leading the motion, the left elbow or the right elbow. Switch over your hands again, the left hand near your head, the right hand supporting the left hand and the head. Now, every time that you begin to draw your right elbow down toward the bottom of your mat, can you begin to elicit that same pressing of your right foot into the left, like we did before? So it's very interesting. The top half of the trunk is sliding along the mat, folding along the right side, expanding on the left, but the trunk is folding while the foot is pressing. And as the foot begins to press, you can feel that same configuration of that right side of the pelvis wanting to lift from the floor at the same time that the right elbow is sliding down toward the mat. And then you'll pause and you start again. So the timing, this coordination of really sensing the right foot pressing somewhere into the left as the left elbow is drawing the torso down. Mhm. Good. Two more. Fantastic. Now, let that go. Bring your arms down to your side. Your legs are long, both of them. Release your knee from your pillow or your roller. The one thing about the somatic experience is it allows the somatosensory system to actually be connected to, actually allows it to be sensed. As you're lying there, you've changed, haven't you? There's something about you that's different, or maybe the floor is different, right? So often we think that the floor got a little softer. There might be a little more levelness. There might be some actually waking up or clarity of your left ankle. Mhm. Now bring yourself back to that same configuration, the left leg hanging out to the side, the right foot standing on the left, and the left hand underneath your head and the right hand underneath the left. And this time, as we begin to going to start this just a little bit differently. I'd like the right elbow to slide down in the direction of your right mat. So you really feel that the torso is what we call side bent. We're moving in that what we call the coronal plane. And the next time you go, can you stay there? Stay there with your elbow down. And from that place there, staying there with your torso in this configuration, maybe two, three times, press the right foot into the left, using your breath. hmm Very good. And then now pause in the pressing of your right foot, and then allow your whole torso to come back to the upright position. And I want you to slide past the midline and over to the left. hmm Good. So now the left elbow is down that's it, in the direction of your mat. And every time you come up from that left side, I want you to draw the right elbow down. It's going to bring you up across to the right. And I want you to press your right foot. So we're doing the same thing, but we're starting the motion off centered, off to the left. So the left elbow will be down as you then begin this place of drawing your right elbow down toward the mat and pressing the right foot at the same time. So you're sliding your upper torso across the mat. And of course, you have to stop pressing your foot, and that allows your left elbow to carry you across the midline, and you'll start again. The left elbow moving away from your side, the right elbow moving toward your side. So it's like a windshield wiper, back and forth. And you're activating your right foot into your left foot as you are carrying yourself over to the right. As you carry yourself over to the left, no need to use your foot in that way. One more. Mhm. Good. The next time you find yourself in the middle and you're ready, just take a nice rest. Let your legs be long, hands down by your side. Stepping on the foot, side tilting. Now, let's roll onto your side and come to standing. Mhm. Wherever you are, just stand right there. You need not to orientate yourself toward the camera, it's fine. And just notice if that in that transition from lying to sitting to standing, if that there isn't a different sensation or awareness in the left ankle compared to the right, the left foot compared to the right. It's very different. Mm. Your feet now are hip width apart. Let your eyes close and just notice your sway. How different is that? Now let your feet come together. Let your eyes close. What's that like? What's your sway like? Can you touch the bridge of your nose? Mhm. Good. Now, begin to step forward and walk rather quickly right now. Real quick. Real quick. That's right. Sense the difference between your left ankle and your right ankle. Mhm. Feel what the turn is like. Most people fall when they're turning. Good. Let that go. Come back. Stand on both feet again, hip width apart. We know that the speed of walking is absolutely important. Anyone who walks less than, I think it's 2.2 miles per hour, is probably an indicator or a fall risk. All right. Just to kind of give you some perspective. So, in this class, we'll be doing things with speed. We'll be doing things with closing your eyes, covering your eyes, changing your ears, the hearing of your ears, all these things to interrupt. And now, what I want you to do is I want you to lean forward. How far forward can the torso lean before you automatically step? Is that different? So you're leaning forward, leaning forward. How far forward can you go before the heels come and you go step, 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 step? hmm It's a quick step. It's not a, oh, I'm in slow motion. It'll be very quick. Uh-huh. Now put your weight mostly on that left foot, and now lean forward. See what that's like compared to when we start. Lean forward. Yep, that's right. There's that quick step, step. Nice. Compare that to your right. Let most of the weight go onto your right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, fantastic. Good. Now, come back to our room. Let's continue. All right. So, one of the things that we are always asking ourselves is, who benefits from this course? Well, I personally think everyone can, right? Um, but yet, I also have to be mindful that there are some of us when you have an active disease process like Meniere's or a vestibular dysfunction, that means that you become aware of a spinning sensation versus dizzy. Those are two very different things. When you have this sense of nausea, right? Or you have this sense of what's called active nystagmus, which the eyes kind of go back and forth very quickly. If you don't know what those things are, you probably will be just fine. All right. But here is, I think, the criteria of why you would want to take this course. It would be if you've already fallen, right? If you have a history of fall, that is the indicator that you are at a fall risk, a previous fall. All right. Do you feel unsteady? And of course, do you worry about falling? Those are the things that we ask ourselves in the type of person who could benefit from this class. And we'll be doing those movement experiences just like we did a few minutes ago, but we'll be doing them on different surface areas. And like I said, we may also do things that change our sight and our hearing. Now, I want to go over the agenda about what we'll be doing in the class. And it's divided into 4 days. The first day is about teaching you how to routinely assess your balance. Okay. So we are going to take a look at all these different types that are done within the clinic. And it'll really give you a sense of understanding where it is that you stand. Of course, we'll talk about the different reflexes because there's different reflexes for different situations. But the focus of this class is on postural reflexes. All right. These reflexes are dependent upon the vision and the somatosensory system. So we'll be tapping into both of those systems. And we are eliciting two very important types of reflexes called the postural or equilibrium. All right. And like I said, we'll talk a little bit more about why balance erodes over time. And remember, dysfunctional relationships, they're not bad, they're not wrong. It's just that become habitual and they become limiting. So we'll talk a little bit more about those. Now, one of my favorite classes is on day 2, and it's called Healing the Dysfunctional Triad. And I just took you through one of 3 functional somatic mobilization strategies that we're going to use in order to call back this ankle reflex strategy. It's the first to go. All right. So if you have an old ankle problem, you already know that it can impact your hip and your torso. And what happens is we'll learn about another strategy, this hip torso strategy, gets so often overused when we're trying to bring our center of mass over our base of support. But really, it's your ankle strategy that brings you back. We'll also be talking about in day 3, and this is, I think, a fun one about the partnership. We don't think about this, but there's a partnership in rolling and turning. All right. And remember, rolling and turning, that's not walking. All right. But I want to take you on an assessment of how you can determine what your weakest link is in rolling and turning because it will influence then your walking. All right. And then also on that day, we're going to take a little bit a look into our vision and just a skosh of a look into the vestibular system only as it relates to this concept of gaze stability. And that's a fancy term. All right. It's a fancy term that just says you're able to hold an image stable as you are in motion. All right. So we'll take a look at that. And then on our last day, and this comes from a client of mine where we were able to help her discover her personal arc of safety. We all have a personal arc of safety that can be expanded, it can be accessed, it can be improved. We started doing something in what's called the coronal plane, the side to side motion. And so, what we begin to do is that we begin to expand our limits of stability by improving our reaction time and our balance strategies. And so, we'll go into this next strategy. It's called the stepping reflex strategy. It's something that we were doing a little bit of today, but I'm going to get a lot clearer with that. And like I said, I tend to use different props. This is a very different class in that we're not with each other in the room. So I have asked you, if you want to come to class, if you can get something that allows you to have some nightshades or some kind of cloth that you could put, bandana that you could put over your eyes. Because when we take away our eyes, we absolutely have to ignite that somatic sensory listening device in our ligaments, our muscles, our joint capsules, our skin, our fascia. So I'm also asking for you to purchase something that has to do with that will change how we stand on different things, because we want to change our contact area for our base of support. All right, in order to safely elicit a reflex. So the class itself is going to take place at the end of October. It's going to be on 4 Fridays, and it's for 5 hours. We'll be having 2 breaks, and I've been trying to be very diligent about giving those breaks. And then we'll also have a long break that is about 30 minutes. You can register by going to our not-for-profit integrativelearningcenter.org, and that can give you some more information. You'll be able to see the objectives that I've identified for each of the days. So that's going to be my intention of what we're trying to cover. All right. So I'm going to stop now the formal presentation, and I would love to hear from you. And this could be whether or not you have any questions, either about what you heard today or about the upcoming class, or what your experience was in doing that somatic movement experience. So I'm open to you to do this in a fashion that can connect to all of us. I am not going to be putting us up on a gallery view, which when you take the class, we will be in gallery view because it'll be more private. And right now, I don't want to make this public. But if you have a question, I'd be glad to entertain those. And if you look down at the bottom of your screen, under the icon that's called reactions, you can push on reactions. It's a smiley face with a plus sign in it. And you push on that, and it has the raising of the hand, and it automatically brings your figure to the upright, and I can quickly get a sense that I can answer some questions. And I'm going to just stay on the line as long as you have questions. I'll entertain those. And again, this will be on the replay, and if you're free to go if that's been your experience too. So thank you. All right, so let's take a look at the hand raising. Let's go with Pamela. Mm-hmm.
Hi, Carol.
Hello, good to see
Great to
you.
see you. I had a question, and maybe this is a little very specific, but I know I have a vestibular condition. Now, that being said, like I was fine for the assessment stuff. Like I didn't get dizzy or anything like that. And it's like, I mean, I've had some professional assessment of balance that I do pretty good, not as good as I used to. So one, do you think that this would be a good fit for me? And two, you mentioned that, you know, you're not addressing the vestibular system in this course. It sort of sounded like maybe there was another course that would, that you might offer. So if that's true, I'd love to know about it.
Okay, all right, all right. So twofold. Let me go the latter first. I don't have a traditional vestibular class set up, and I don't think that I will do that. And here's reason why. Because I think personally, in working with people who have absolutely vestibular dysfunction there within the ear, in the vestibular structure itself, you need one-on-one help. All right. You don't need a group. And I want to be respectful of that because it can take you, when you get vestibularly off, it feels more than horrible. It feels life-threatening. And if you've never experienced that, I hope you never do. And that's
Oh
why
yeah,
I
I know.
won't, right? I won't, yeah, I won't be doing that kind of class. However, here's the deal. When you did that Romberg assessment and you did not have this sense that you were really spinning. Dizzy is different. When you're not spinning or the room doesn't feel like it's spinning, then I think you will be absolutely safe for the class. And that's why I have everyone do it. I'm going to do some other things to assess your balance as well. But that's kind of one of the if you can pass that gate, then you can come on in. Now, the other thing, even though the class is designed for somatosensory and visual, the gaze stability portion of the class is a subset of vestibular training. So if you've had that, you'll recognize that, okay? And I do something just a little bit different than the traditional vestibular approach to gaze stability. So we would be mindful that the like the crystal doesn't move out of the canal. And if you know what that means,
Yeah.
you'll understand. Okay, so then I think you should be fine.
Okay, thank you.
You betcha. Mm-hmm. And Miss Jan.
Hi, it's not only nice to see you, Carol, but to see lots of familiar faces from over the months of class. It's nice to be part of the community. Just an observation to share with you. Not only am I feeling more stable, but the ongoing tension in my jaw has disappeared. And I've always wondered where that was coming from. So how exciting to find it was my ankle, but really not surprising because that's a very dysfunctional joint in my body. And also the trauma reflex, the sinking that I typically have on the right side of my body does not seem to be as intense, nearly as intense, at least in a seated position.
Mm.
So I just wanted to share with you that one exploration. And part of me kept thinking, I wonder what would happen if I did it in the reverse with my left foot on top of my right. I'll bet that would be good, and I was kind of wondering. And of course, when I get the replay, that's exactly what I'm going to do to explore that. But really had really significant, profound changes for me already. So thank you. I'll see you soon.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for sharing your experience. I do appreciate that as well as I know others. And it is wonderful to see everyone again, right? That we've developed this sense of community that, we are interconnected. We are regional and local at the same time. It's inter and intra, isn't it? And you mentioned something very interesting about the neck and that there are reflexes. And again, they're part of the vestibular system um, that not just stabilizes gaze, but there's a part of our system that our eyes and our neck are connected. And then we have the changes in our neck can then also change what not just happens here in vestibularly, but changes how our torso can respond. And the excitement about being able to influence parts of yourself that then have this incredible spontaneous response. And the real proof in the pudding is when one of my clients, I was teaching a class. It was a Bones for Life class, and I had done something similar to this. And then I did a special thing that I'm going to do in class with you. And she was carrying a flat of flowers to plant, and she was carrying them. She's had a previous compression fracture about maybe 5 years ago, and it was stable, but she just tripped. She wasn't quite sure what she tripped on, but it was the next thing you knew, all of a sudden she was moving forward. And then she remembered this automatic stepping that came in place. And before you know it, she was stepping without really thinking about it. And then in retrospect, saying, I was doing that stepping thing. That really helped. So you'll find that not only does it improve the sensation, more pleasurable in your body, but the body can be more responsive. And that's where I want to take this class. That's where I want to try to keep us healthy for a while. So thank you, Miss Jan. Miss Ingrid?
So like Jan, I'm really happy to be in company here. And I thought what we did on the floor was amazing. And here's my sort of a concern I have about it and a question I have about it. I've noticed that my tendency is to walk sort of on the outsides of my feet. This felt relieving, like, oh, my ankle can bend and it doesn't have to be all my foot bones trying to create that movement, which is painful. But then I'm wondering, is that I was able to do better with my balance after, but I'm wondering, am I sort of encouraging something that's actually not so functional? Are there other movements of the ankle in other directions that would be useful, or is this uniquely connected to the hip in this way, and be happy with what I got?
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I hope there's more for you. And secretly I do know, yes, there is more. So like I said, this was just one of 3 functional somatic mobilizations that we will do in the ankle and at the foot. All right. And if you took my listen to the Feldenkrais Summit course, I gave a video out on another functional mobilization, and we're going to be doing that inside the class too. So when we have this sensation of the rolling out, it's not just that's like it can be directly related to the ankle, but it can be in response actually to the hips and the torso. All right. It can be directly in response. And this is what we're going to learn about during this partnership between rolling and turning, is about the midline, our anatomical and functional midline, which we have dropped out of. And then we'll apply that then to our limits of stability. So what I'm hoping that you should experience is that, I don't have to assume that rolled out on the outside edge posture of the foot. Maybe it's coming from somewhere else. And where can I change that? Because when you roll on the outside edge like that, the main reflex that goes on at the ankle is actually to let the ankle go whoop, to come in, almost like pronate or become a flat foot. It's like the muscles on the outside need to be turned on. And there is a job, it's a reflex pattern. It's not just in there, but it's a reflex pattern that starts. It's this happening right here when you look at this young lady. All right. And these, by the way, are real people. And so what's happening is you can't see her foot, but the thing that rights her when she is rolling on the outside edge like that is part of this larger picture. All right. So improve the access of what's happening right down in here with the center of mass. All right. Over that base of support, the base of support can start to change. How's that? Oops, I might have lost Ingrid there. She'll catch that on
No,
the.
I was just quickly had muted myself. Thank you very much. And if there's time, I have a follow-up question, which is it always useful to mobilize the ankle, or when there's ankle instability, are there cautions about doing that?
Gosh, I think that's an excellent question. With every area, like we'll take a foot and ankle, within every area of our body, there's this relationship that if there's more mobility somewhere else, there has to be more stability somewhere else. So what happens is the foot, the bones of the foot are supposed to be our basis of stability. They move, right? I mean, they do have to conform and shape to the ground and the surface that we're on. But it's the ankle that needs its mobility in all planes of motion. So when you reverse and make the ankle more stiff and the foot more mobile, then what you see is this change that's happening in the foot. So it's not just about restoring range of motion. Yes, you want quality motion across several joints. Absolutely. But if the motion at the ankle can come back, then its partner regionally, which is at the hip, right? If those two are talking together more freely and have more motion, then the foot can be the place of stability. Because if you go in and give yourself, oh, my foot, these bones are really stiff. And then you go in, you change the metatarsal, you change the toes, that's all great. But if you don't connect that to its relationship to a mobile shin bone over the foot bone and how it relates to the hip, then the foot has to get even more loose and the ankle has to even get more tight. And so you never get a chance to get to the next level. And then, of course, as you get older, you lose the speed at which the nervous system can access the motor pattern to right you back up.
Thank you very much.
Wanda?
Hi, that was so clear and interesting. Thank you. I have 3 quick observations about the movement exploration we did. The first thing, I was surprised you characterized this as an ankle movement exploration, but I noticed I was feeling it in my hips more than any place else, and it was almost a hip opener. So the second thing was when you had us then stand up and walk around and notice the articulation in the ankles, I was surprised at the difference in the mobility and flexibility of the right ankle. because I didn't get such a sense of what was happening in the ankles as I was doing it, because the sensation was so much in the hips. So that was pleasant to see that right ankle had really loosened up and seemed to have a lot more range. The range was increased. But the most interesting thing of all for me was when you started guiding us through the movement, I balked a little bit because I thought, oh, this is so complex. She's having us do this on the left and she's having us do this on the right. And then I've got to pay attention to where I'm putting my right foot up on the left foot. But there was something almost magical if I just relaxed and listened to one thing that you were saying at a time, then I had no difficulty with it. So that was really a personal aha moment for me, to not get wound up and, oh, what exactly am I doing and how am I doing it? To just take a tiny bit of information and pay attention to that and implement it. So thank you. That felt like above and beyond the lesson for me. That was useful. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Oh, that's lovely. That's lovely. And something I learned a long time ago, it was Julie Francis, she was one of my teachers in my training. And I remember her saying that whenever you are starting a new habit, a new awareness, a new pathway, you want to open something up, it always begins with a challenge. The unfamiliar always begins with a challenge before it becomes that, well, that's a whole lot of words for saying this feeling that I'm getting, right? And that's what your comments evoke in me. So, and then also when you feel it in the hip more than the ankle, that just tells you the sweet relationship that the ankle and the hip have and that they're connected. They are gates, if you will, of mobility. And they're gates of mobility that are quickly able to respond if given the pathway to respond, clear the pathway to respond. So wonderful. I think it's Tracy.
Okay, thank you. And thank you. It was very powerful. This lesson, I really am grateful for it. And my question is, I'm a physical therapist, and I haven't worked in a couple years, and I'm going to be working again soon. And this fascinates me, what you're teaching. So is this a class that I could take in order to be able to help others? Or is this mostly just a personal journey? And that, I guess that's what I'd like to know, because I would love to learn more about this.
Mhm. Thank you. Well, I too am a physical therapist, as you know, and my intention, my overall arcing intention is to try and influence as many people as I can. So to reach the wellness profession, to reach the healthcare provider, to give them, yes, it is a personal experience, so that you may then go ahead and teach others and direct others in such a way that they can experience these underpinning foundational principles of movement. So it's a both and. It's designed, and my hope is that you take it and you share it with the people from either that you love or that the people that you serve. So it is absolutely accessible to both avenues.
Okay. And then my other question is, it's 5 hours per day, right? Is that going to be recorded? And can we do it independently on our own if we're working during that time?
Mhm. Yes, absolutely. It's going to be recorded and it's going to be accessible for a replay. And you can do it on your own. I've had many people in this format when I taught Gait for Wild Human Potential actually use this format. And there are some people in the audience today who actually have had that experience of where they re-listen to the lessons and then do them. Now, the other thing that I offer, because I think this is important, is because the kind of person I am, I like to hear about your experience. I want to know what you're getting. Does it make a difference? What clarifications do you need in order to make it reproducible, right? What if you get into trouble? You need help. So that's where we can either email one another, or as I've done in the past, we also have the format where we can all come together in a Zoom chat room and have some discussion. So I'll be having one of those like on a Sunday evening to make it accessible for people who want to just show up and might need a little bit more clarification about someone.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You bet. And welcome back to the profession. Miss Madeline.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you for this wonderful introduction, and I can't wait for the course. I have two practical questions. One relates to the question you just got. Can you tell us the hours of the class on Fridays?
I can. It's going to be on Eastern Standard Time, just to let you know, and it's from 12 until 5 p.m.
Okay. Okay. And then what was my other question? Oh, yes. Is it okay for us to share this introduction with others who we think might be interested in the class?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, I'm going to compress this down and make it more usable, and we'll put it up on the website. Yeah, because I think it's for everyone. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I could
yeah.
think of, I sound like one of those people who said, oh, my husband should take Feldenkrais, or my sister should take Feldenkrais, but my sister should take this class because she keeps falling and her feet are bothering her. I do have one substantive question about something you said about the feet, though, which I think is sort of one of those apparent contradictions that are contained within ourselves as humans. I mean, the feet are designed to be adaptable to different surfaces, obviously in different circumstances and situations, and yet you talk about them as the basis of our stability. So is it the inherent flexibility of the structure of the foot that allows the stability? Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Oh, let me make something clear there. There's a base of support and a base of stability. Those are two like different uses of base. All right. So base of support, your feet are a base of support from which your nervous system is monitoring your mass over that base of support. All right. The base of stability is through your entire system, monitored through and given information through the vestibular, the somatosensory, and the visual. It gives you that overall, the reflexes of postural reflexes are the ones that give us that postural control or postural stability. So for me, base of support is not base of stability. Your feet are an example of base of support, but you could be standing on your hands and that's a base of support. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it's a different language interpretation. So thanks. I wanted to clear that up. That's a good one. That's a good one. I'll have to remember that.
Thank you.
All right. Now, I'm not sure who this is, but it's iPad, ITS12. You're on an iPad. And while you're looking to see if the hand is up, I can't find you. All right.
Oh,
There you go. Hello, iPad.
I'm not iPad, it's iPhone, actually.
Oh, iPhone. Hi, iPhone.
Well,
No, seriously.
uh,
Hello.
I have a feeling that it did help a very basic and deep problem that I have had. All my life, I have had big traumas of falling, and I'm working since dozens of years already, and somehow the whole left side is stuck, which is very unpleasant. I have been doing Feldenkrais on and off for a very long time. It is always very helpful for everything. But I was wondering, I'm happy to hear that the hours is 12 to 5, because here in Switzerland it will be then 6 to 11 at night. It's still kosher time. So I might see if I can take it. But the trauma stuff, is that directly addressed by your course or by everything that you just showed? I feel yes, but do you have yourself more information about traumatic help through your Feldenkrais teaching?
So
or
you're
bonds of life or whatever? Of course, it is always in the body, and if the body gets a bit opened up or relaxed or everything, relaxation is a big problem too when you have traumatic things. I was wondering about that.
I just want to make sure I'm hearing this word. I can't distinguish if you're saying somatic or if you're saying tone, like tonal.
I didn't say somatic or tone, nothing. Traumatic. A trauma. You know, a trauma is when you have an accident, you get traumatic.
Oh, trauma.
Yes, my English accent is a bit Hebrew.
No problem. I'm getting you now. So we don't talk about trauma explicitly. What we're doing is we're examining the places of not just where trauma has occurred, but how the nervous system, all right, has compensated. Well, first of all, when you have a trauma, the nervous system tries its best to accommodate that which has gone on. It elicits different types of reflexes, right? It elicits, and we'll talk about those, the protective or the withdrawal reflex. And that should be there for a certain amount of time. And then we are supposed to be able to integrate and come back and heal in those local areas that have the insult or the trauma. So therefore, then the connection or the relationship to the regional areas and then the global or function can emerge. But here's what happens. Whatever reason it is, the nervous system always tries to bring us into homeostasis. It's its job. That means balance, okay? And it does
it hasn't been successful
right?
for the last 60 years with me.
Right. And so what it does is that it will take whichever pathway is available. And if the traumatic pathway or the area that experienced trauma is no longer available, no problem. It's going to adjust and it's going to do the best it can. But here's the problem. It does the best it can and it develops dysfunctional relationship. So the disc between the DYS, between two functional points, becomes maladaptive and changes. And then before you know it, it's the whole left side that's a problem, that can't be responsive as it is. And when I hear something that's a whole left side, there's something gone on at the base of the head, the top of the neck, that doesn't allow this connection or believes, I don't say it allows, the connection of the head, the center of mass, and the base of support. For some reason, that center of mass is caught, is held in a certain place. So I'm wondering, as I think it was Wanda who was saying, oh man, I really felt this in my hip, right? But when today's exercise movement experience, when we press the foot and it carries the pelvis over to the left, you're moving your center of mass over to the left. You're moving it usually in the direction that it is stuck in. So I'm just curious if you're more stuck with the center of mass, this is how I would interpret it, okay? And that we would talk more about it in the class. But if you have your center of mass held in a certain place, then the relationship between the visual, the vestibular, and the somatosensory is saying, this is what we got. This is what we're reading. Nervous system says, okay, based upon that, then this is all I have available to access the motor pathways. And so it may not bring you up as fast, or you may just end up falling. So what we're trying to do is to restore the freedom of the center of mass to be responsive enough to say, I've got that. Nervous systems will fire a certain pattern. It says, I got you. I'm going to bring you back over that base of support, or I'm going to have you elicit a certain strategy that will make you step, step, step and bring you back up. But if you're one-sided, if you get too far, I mean, you would be someone who would, when the center of mass, right, gets disturbed and displaced, that's that 35% of people who end up falling. So,
Well, it came from falling originally.
yes, and one fall will beget another, right? As you
I
know,
got a few.
you got a few.
But the problem is, it's exactly the thing. The whole left side is stuck with the sciatic nerve and the neck and the heart and everything. And I do hope that it can be a bit released through your course.
Absolutely. Did you have some success or change? What was your experience when you had that somatic?
I guess I'll have to watch. You mean today? There is something, but I have to watch it more deeply and a bit at length in the next few hours.
Okay.
I can write you maybe.
Okay. All right. That might give you more information whether or not,
Of course.
hey, if this class is a green light for me.
Well, it's good anyway. Anything with Feldenkrais is good. This I know, but specifically.
Right, right. We want to match. We want to make it a match.
Good. Thanks a lot, Carol. I might very much do it.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Eli?
Ellie.
Ellie?
It's not Eli. Ellie.
Oh, Ellie. Oh, I see you've moved now from your phone. You were an iPad. Okay, got it.
Yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Okay, all right. Bill.
I have, well, sort of a long history. I've always had weak ankles, at least with regard to skating. But, and I had knee replacements. My left one, after I had a lateral release of the patella, my quads would give out at the first 5 to 10 degrees. And that sort of ended up developing into because of short pedicles in my spine, all the way from the neck to the butt, I had this congenital spinal stenosis. So I had a cauda equina. And in any case, I got into standing with locking my knees and my hips. And I'm trying to work on unlocking the knees, but I was wondering how that would fit in with this course.
Wow, my heart really goes out to you. Okay, because you're definitely an example of how our traumas and how we walk and how we try to recover. Remember, walking and moving forward in life, automatic. It's driven. You're going to do that. However, if we don't resolve some of the relationships, then it becomes even more dysfunctional. And the next thing we know, we've got those those arthritic spines or spirals on our spine, on those pedicles. The next thing we know, we have a pelvis that's torted, and the groove that the sciatic nerve goes down is altered. Okay. And equata, that is, that's a serious.
Well, I was paralyzed with my hamstrings were paralyzed, my glutes on my left side were paralyzed, and I had poor sphincter control until the compression surgery.
Right. Okay. I would say that there are times in this class I'm going to ask you to move quickly. Okay. And I worry, not being there, that I would not be able to monitor you close enough. All right. If you want to, I'm really torn, to tell you the truth.
I'm a physician, but I mean, I don't know that makes any difference. But I mean, I usually, if I am trying to move, I usually have a situation where I have something to hold on to, or at least within reach.
You have to have that now.
No, well, generally, yeah. Generally speaking, I do use my hands a lot to keep me going. I mean, this is I've had probably the locking of the knee probably since 2004, when I had the lateral release of the muscles to the left patella. And that's, but I didn't realize that the spinal stenosis, I always thought it was just because I was lazy and not working enough, not exercising enough. But I have Ehlers-Danlos and loose joints and.
So you see that just walking more or changing how you walk by increasing your step length or step width is not going to give you the success that you're hoping. So I'm thinking that, just like the question that I asked Ellie, what was your impact? What changed for you? What could you track? What was different for you when you did this somatic movement experience today? How did that change your, what we call, furniture walking?
Well, I think I had a positive response to it, in terms of at least feeling a bit more comfortable with, say, leaning forward to take some quick steps, with feeling a bit more looseness at the ankle. I guess my major question was regard to my locking of the knees, and how I mean, I'm still working on dealing with that, but I still have this weakness that comes occasionally if I'm not really paying strong mental attention to the first 5 or 10 degrees of my left knee flexion.
Well, when we think about our hyperextension of the knees is a symptom, right? It's not a source, right? Right. Well, it's more than that. It's more than that. Even before the cauda equina came along, when we don't have that proportional flexibility that's needed at the ankle in combination with the foot, the ankle and the hip working together as a team, you have to get that mobility somewhere, right? If you don't have it above and below the knee, then you're going to get it at the knee. And the knee was supposed to be a joint of stability, not a joint of mobility, which in your case is called hyperextension. And so when you have now a decrease in muscle tone and using of the quad, but when you restore, and that's what we're trying to do, despite your, not just you personally, Bill, but just we all are going to come to the table with our own, not just aches and pains, our own rewrite of our physiology, our anatomy is not going to be intact for some of us. right? We've had enough trauma in our life that it's changed. However, and this is the beauty of somatics, and it's the beauty of this parts to whole concept and thinking, is that if you improve some very integral parts, like the relationship of the ankle to the hip, you restore that ability of stepping, then you might be able to, not might, you will probably be able to abort a really bad fall, the next bad fall. All right.
Right.
So you're someone who absolutely needs a class like this. And you absolutely have to internally be able to monitor, that's a red light, that's a green light, I'm going to back off, I'm going to watch, I'm going to see what I can do within the limits, I'm going to chunk this down, and let's see how we do it from a seated position. All right, because we should be able to take everything that we do and apply it to different positions, actually. Okay.
Hmm.
So I'm not sure if that is helpful or not, but
Well, thank you.
making your decision, but I appreciate you sharing what you had to do.
Okay.
Your experience. Thanks, Bill. And
Thank you.
Elizabeth Keith. Are you there, Elizabeth? Okay, she may have dropped the line. All right, let me just check these chats. You're welcome, everyone. Thank you for those good comments. Okay, I think anyone else? All right. There you go. Well, that's going to conclude, I should say, our webinar today. Thanks so much for joining me, and I hope to see you in class, and if not, maybe another class. And if you have any questions, feel free to just give me an email and I'll try to get back with you. All right. All right. Have a great day, a great evening if you're already there, or a very good morning. All right. Thank you again.